do you prefer to email, phone, or text your friends, and then why?
I prefer, if I want to have a conversation, like an in-depth conversation, I prefer to phone friends, just because it's easier for the conversation to flow, because just talking back and forward. But if it's just like a brief question you want to know the answer to, or vice versa, I prefer text, because sometimes you've only got a few minutes, and so it's just easier to give a quick reply via text. But if you want to have a conversation about something important, well, then I prefer a phone call.
Yeah. Alright guys, now let's focus on fluency and coherence. Here, the speaker is very precise because she wants to answer this question precisely. Okay, the question is, do you prefer to email, phone, or text your friends? Okay, she says, if I want to have a conversation, like an in-depth conversation, I prefer to phone friends, just because it's easier for the conversation to flow. So she says she prefers to phone friends, and then she explains why she likes doing it. Okay, and then she also says that I prefer text because sometimes you've only got a few minutes. Again, she is focusing on the second aspect here, and then she wants to explain why. So remember, you choose something and then you explain why, and then you choose something again you have to explain why. Okay, if you don't explain why, then the examiner might not like your response, because he wants to hear extensive responses. Okay, so try to do that. Now let's just focus on the next aspect, which is lexical resource. The speaker uses a wide range of vocabulary. For example, she says an in-depth conversation. An in-depth means very meaningful, okay, very deep, when you are talking about something from different perspectives. So for example, you might talk about something from a religious perspective, from a social perspective, okay, and so forth. Next, to flow. So it's easier for the conversation to flow. Okay, which means that it's easy to talk about a particular topic. You ask questions, somebody answers, okay, and then you just add some extra information and so forth. So it's easy to talk, so to flow. Next, just talking back and forward. When you talk back and forward, that means you ask questions and somebody answers, and then this person asks you questions and then you answer. So you talk back and forth, back and forth. Next, a brief question, which means a short question. Next, vice versa means the opposite is true. For example, you fly from Canada to New Zealand, and then next month you do vice versa, which means that you fly from New Zealand to Canada. Next, via text means by text. Now I'll just focus on the next aspect, which is grammatical range and accuracy. Here, the speaker uses a comparative form of an adjective by saying easier. So remember, easy, easier, the easiest. Okay, you don't want to say more easy, only easier. Next, we've only got, which means you only have. Okay, next, I would prefer. So when you're talking about two possible options, and when you prefer something, you say I would prefer a phone call. So the idea is she doesn't have this choice now, but if she had this choice, she would prefer to do something. Do you reply to emails and messages as soon as you receive them?
Half and half. If it's an email, which I don't get many, but if it's an email, I sort of take my time, like could be a few hours or even a day later, to think about what I'm going to write. And if it's just like a text message and it's just asking a quick question, well then I'll read it straight away to see if it's important. And if someone wants to know something straight away, well then I'll just reply straight away. But if I'm busy and they're just saying, hey, how are you? What have you been up to? Well then, and I'm busy, well then I might delay and do it and reply a few hours later.
Okay, now let's look at fluency and coherence. The question is, do you reply to emails and messages as soon as you receive them? And the speaker says half and half, meaning that as she is going to analyze this question in detail. So she's going to divide this question into two aspects, and she's going to talk about the first aspect, which is emails, and then she's going to talk about messages. Okay, therefore she says, if it's an email, which I don't get many, I sort of take my time. And then she explains. And then she says, and if it's just like a text message, and then she talks about messages. So that's how you can get a high score, if you focus on each aspect of the question given and explain in detail what you do in this particular situation. Now let's focus on lexical resource. In this case, half and half means, while sometimes I respond to emails and messages quickly, sometimes I don't do that because I need extra time to think, analyze, and then respond. Okay, so half and half means like, well, half of the time I do A and half of the time I do B. Next, I sort of take my time. When you say sort of, that means kind of. You're not really sure, so which means usually, sort of, you know. It's not exactly, but sort of, almost, kind of. Next, I'll read it straight away. The expression straight away means immediately. Right now. Next, I reply straight away. I reply means I respond, I answer. Next, what have you been up to? That means what have you been doing? Next, I might delay. When you delay, that means that you don't do it right now, you do it a bit later. Now let's focus on grammatical range and accuracy. The speaker says, if it's an email, which I don't get many. So she wants to give some extra information to the information that she's providing, and therefore she says, which I don't get many. So which is referring to an email. Next, it could be a few hours or even a few days. So she uses could. She uses the modal verb could, meaning that it could be a few days or it could be a few minutes. Okay, when you have several options, you say it could be. Next, what I'm going to write. In this case, I'm going to means I'm planning to write. Next, I'll read it straight away. So she's using the future simple, meaning that she will do something in the future. Next, and if someone wants to know. Okay, so remember wants, not want, because someone means one person. That's why wants. Next, but if I'm busy and they are just saying, so this is the present continuous, meaning that the situation is happening right now, not all the time. Next, what have you been up to? Which means here we need to use the present perfect because we are talking about a long period of time. So for example, my friend saw me last week and he sees me now. So he wants to know what I have been doing during like for 7 days by saying, what have you been up to? It means, what have you been up to since I saw you last time? Next, and I'm busy, then I might delay. So she's using the modal verb might, which means she might delay or she might not delay.
Are you happy to receive emails that are advertising things?
Yes and no. I get a lot of emails from things I'm interested in, like health products and things like that, so I'm happy to receive those, but not so much. Sometimes emails pop up that you don't know where they've come from and they're just advertising goodness knows what, like spam, so I'm not so keen to receive them.
Okay, now let's focus on fluency and coherence. The question is, are you happy to receive emails that are advertising things? So the examiner wants to know whether you are happy or not. Okay, whether you are ready to do it or not. And the speaker says yes and no. And then she's talking about both aspects. When she's happy, why, and when she's not happy, and again, why. Okay, next, the keywords are advertising thanks. So it's very important to mention this fact. And therefore she says, and they're just advertising goodness knows what, like spam. So all of these keywords are related to advertising, and that's how she can get a high score for fluency and coherence. Now let's focus on lexical resource. She says sometimes emails pop up. Pop up means like when they appear suddenly in large quantities. So you open your email and you see that a lot of email and that have arrived. So they pop up. Okay. Next, goodness knows what. In this case, that means a lot of items, a lot of different items, and it's very difficult to predict what items you will receive. Okay, so goodness knows what. So goodness means God, basically. Only God knows what kind of advertising you will receive. Next, like spam. Spam is an email which you didn't expect to get, but then you got it and you don't like this email, or you might like this email, but it prompts you to buy something, probably something that you don't even want to buy. So which means spam. Next, so I'm not so keen to. I'm not so keen to means I don't really want to. So to be keen to means want to. Now let's focus on grammatical range and accuracy. The speaker says, you don't know where they've come from. So you don't know, she's using the present simple here. Where they've come from, she uses the present perfect to indicate that something has already happened. So they have come, came, come. And they are just advertising goodness knows what. They are advertising, so we are using the present continuous here to indicate that the situation is happening right now. Next, so I'm not so keen to receive them. So remember, to be keen to do something. Okay, not, you can say I'm not so keen for receiving them, only I'm not so keen to receive them.